Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Jaxson Spratling. We have a fun show for you guys today. We're previewing USC Arizona, talking about the week of practice that was for the Trojans. We'll talk about Jaxson Dart and his status. We saw him get some more reps on Tuesday, so we'll get into that. Drake London love. Ryan, I know you and I got into that on the Parasol podcast. I'm sure we'll continue that today, especially because Chuck and you just came out with something about Drake London as well, so we'll talk about that. Wherever you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, Parasol, Periscope, Twitter, something, whatever it is.
Twitter Live.
Put your comments, questions, concerns. We'll try to answer them as best as we can. And then tweet hashtag Tunnel Vision. You don't need our handles or anything in it. Just tweet hashtag Tunnel Vision. I'll put your tweet up on the screen. But guys, like I said, also no calls today. Sorry about that. Like I said, Arizona,
no phone calls,
USC.
sorry.
Sorry. Just throwing that in there. You two were having a conversation about this Arizona team right before we went live, and I was like, wait. Just wait until we go live. So
doesn't ever want us to talk, right?
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, if you're going to have some good stuff up for the show, might as well save it. I guess let's start off with this Arizona team. What do you make of it? I know Dante Williams in the Thursday morning press conference said, the record doesn't necessarily reflect everything about this team. They've been in the game until the fourth quarter, he said. Ryan, I've declared you the Pac-12 guru. Okay. What do you make of this Arizona team?
Yeah, so, just 35,000-foot view, yes. They haven't won a game in over 2 calendar years. I think it was October 4th, 2019 the last time they won a game. It's been a while. 19-game losing streak. That's the longest in college football. It's bad, right? They are the worst team in the Pac-12. And because Colorado is really bad too, the team that USC beat, but Colorado throttled Arizona. The good thing, though, if you're an Arizona fan, they look better against some pretty good teams. They look pretty good against Oregon. Like they had Washington beat last weekend on Friday night. It is a heartbreaking way to lose that game. They have some decent pieces. Like Colorado's offense is probably the worst unit, not only in the Pac-12, but maybe in the country. Like they struggle to get to 100 yards. Arizona does some good things. They can run the ball pretty well. USC has trouble, hard time stopping the run. Now they're on their third quarterback, and their quarterback play has been abysmal. But they have statistically the second best pass defense in the conference. They got a lot of transfers. Jed Fish brought a lot of defensive transfers in, and they've put them in different spots. Guys like Pandy can play. I think Bear Hill on the offensive side is stud. There are things you can look at Arizona and go, I could see this team being pretty decent. But they just keep losing games. They lost to Northern Arizona, and so there's parts there where if USC goes to the Coliseum where they've struggled and plays pretty crappy, there's things that Arizona can do to make this an actual game, which it really shouldn't be. They almost beat USC last year, if you remember, an interception through the hands of one of the Arizona defenders. What could have ended the game. So this is not USC's on a couple of game losing streak themselves. They haven't won a Pac-12 game at home. This is a team you need to get a win from, and you're trying to get to a bowl game. You have to get bowl eligible. This is the one team you definitely have to beat. So there's some spunk to this Arizona team. I think they do better things than Colorado, but Colorado beat them head-to-head.
Spunk, huh?
There's some spunk. So this is not a dead team that's 0-19.
I think during the offseason, Jed Fish won all the battles he could. And, I was asked by a couple of coaches that had Arizona ties, baseball coaches, that had Arizona ties, been in Arizona, just kind of interested in the Pac-12. Like, what do you think? Can they win any games? And I was like, they don't have any talent. But I was like, they'll beat Northern Arizona. They'll sneak up and get somebody is what I thought. They just haven't – they don't have any talent.
No.
And I thought if Jed Fish could carry that and win 3 or 4 games, then maybe they could carry it because they're recruiting really well and then finally get some talent next year and, maybe they could, turn things around. But that's the big thing this year is there's just not talent. Berry Hill's good. he's not great. He's a Pac-12, all Pac-12 second team style. Maybe
he'll have a good game
string.
on Saturday. I bet he has a good game.
But he's their only offensive weapon. Their running backs are okay, but they don't have much in the offensive line. Obviously, being on your third quarterback is never a good thing for a team that's struggling in a lot of other areas. They just don't have a lot of talent. Now they brought in some transfers to try to build back up, and they did a really good job in that market, I think, of getting guys that had left Arizona to try to bring some talent back, and they're trying to build from Arizona out. So doing a lot of positive things as far as what it will take to turn that program around eventually. But right now, there's just not any talent on the team. So USC should win this game. You said, well, they run the ball well, but they can't throw the ball. That's similar to Colorado to me. Colorado should be able to run the ball well with the running backs they have. Their offensive line has been abysmal.
It's pretty bad.
That's been probably the biggest disappointment in the entire Pac-12, I would say. And there's been a lot of disappointments in the Pac-12. But with Arizona, I think it's going to be similar where they're one-dimensional, and USC against one-dimensional offenses have been able to, attack those teams and played well in those situations. Similar to Washington State, they're not going to run the ball much, and USC, one-dimensional offense, they were able to play much better against them. They've had much more struggles when they're selling out to stop the run, and then they're getting beat in some of those one-on-one matchups. I don't think Arizona's going to do a lot of that. Maybe Barry Hill, get some catches, but if they keep him from having two 75-yard touchdowns, I don't think they're ever going to be in this game. USC should win this, but I did say before the season they'll get somebody. Are they going to get anybody is now the question, and USC could be that team that they could get, because even at USC at 3-4, Arizona beating them would be getting them. That's a team.
God, yeah. I mean, they were this close to beating Washington. They 16-0 lead, and they lost 21-16. It's got to be heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And I want to talk to both of you guys about this. Team morale, is USC going to come into this game fired up to play 0-19 Arizona? They need to get wins too. Arizona, I think they're going to bounce back and they just have to get a win no matter what. Even though they just missed one last week, they get another opportunity to do it. But I'm worried about USC if they're going to have the kind of fire that you would have come into a game it's Arizona, they're terrible. Are you even going to try to play that hard?
That is a question, I think. I don't know how Keely feels about this, but I feel like there's a difference of tides with the two teams where USC just 2 straight losses, they're struggling, interim coach, they know things are going to change. Whereas Arizona, you can feel like we're getting closer, we're building a little bit, even though, there are the talent deficiencies they have. But I feel like USC is going to come. And I think that's one of the things that Dante Williams has tried to really attack this week is bringing extra energy, bringing the juice squad that they have or juice crew, whatever it is, going into practices, small things. Again, I think Dante Williams is doing the best he can with all the off-the-field stuff. I think he's made a lot of positive improvements to things that have been issues for USC. The problem is on the field, they're having a lot of issues that he's not been able to fix.
Yeah. What do you think, Keely?
Yeah, I would say normally for any USC team, it'd be well, they're definitely going to take care of business in the Coliseum. But you can't say that about this team. It's been historic losses in the Coliseum, but this is a USC team that I think definitely wants to bounce back. I know Dante Williams, like you guys said, is trying to instill fun, and football is fun, and work hard for it anyway. And, and so I think they will still come out fired up. It's just, like I said, I don't know what to expect from this USC team. There hasn't been a standard that you go, that's the USC team of 2021, because it's just been a roller coaster this season.
Even if they don't come out with a lot of juice, they still have more playmakers, and their playmakers will still make more plays, in my opinion. Arizona, by the PFF grades as a team, has the worst grade as a team of any Power 5 team. They have a 59.3 overall grade as a team. It's not very good, in case you're wondering. There's 4 or 5 other teams below them that, Georgia Southern, Akron, New Mexico State, teams that are really, really
Powerhouses.
They have 3 players on the entire team that are over 70, a grade over 70, and none of them are over 75. So as individuals, it's not like someone's just dominating all the reps and they don't have a quarterback to throw to them or whatever it may be. There's not a ton of talent on that team. And I think USC's playmakers, the Drakes, Keontae Ingram, I think is really starting to ball out. I think those
Yeah,
guys,
that's a good point.
you could have individual performances still carry them to a victory. It may not be pretty, and that's been the case with a lot of USC wins in the last half decade, but I think the talent will actually carry them out.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Ryan and I were talking about earlier, this is a game that you need to get a win, considering what looks forward for USC. Are we at the point, Shotgun, where we're wondering about bowl eligibility for this team?
Oh, definitely.
Beyond that point. Yeah.
I think that was after that Utah loss, you go, whew, are they going to be able to get there? And I think getting reaffirmation from Drake London that that's something he wants. Yeah, I want to play in a bowl game. I want to, I want to finish and be able to play in a bowl game, and I want to do that before he goes to the NFL draft. I think that's a positive development. Someone posted this, a comment, I think it was on YouTube, and I didn't have a chance to check it today, but I saw the comment today, that nobody on this team has been to a bowl game and won, at least not in their USC careers.
Wow.
So when's the last time USC won a bowl game?
Yikes.
That's a
I didn't even think about
excellent
that.
point.
Yeah.
Rose Bowl?
I don't remember what they did in 2016, but that was the 2015 season, right?
No, 2016
2016 was
season.
I'm
Yes.
terrible with seasons. Just the numbers, I get them all mixed together.
2017 was Cotton Bowl.
Bowl, yeah. Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, that's it. Because Wisconsin and Iowa have been the two
Yeah.
Yeah.
beat downs.
2018, they weren't bowl eligible.
So,
Wow.
yeah, no one on this roster during their USC career
That's sad.
except for maybe, is Vi?
They should fire Clay Helton. Oh, wait, they already did that.
I think
Okay.
Vi maybe have been around long enough, and maybe Liam Jimmons. That might be the only two.
Okay.
But like I said, I haven't looked up that stat, but that tells you that's how long. So I think these players would love to play in a bowl game and love to actually win one. So that becomes a goal now for them. The goal should be national championships and Pac-12 championships and championships. That's what they talked about all offseason.
Bowl championships.
But now
The LA Bowl championship is what they're going.
I mean, if you get into that bowl and it's a chance to play in SoFi for the first time, I think the players would be excited about that.
Yeah.
It's not going on a trip or anything, but they've got to get to that point though, and it starts with this weekend. You got to beat Arizona. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. If you don't beat Arizona, there's no chance of getting bowl eligible. You're not beating the other teams on your schedule if you can't handle the worst Power 5 team in the country.
Yeah.
Ryan, as the Pac-12 guru, this Arizona team is randomly good at pass defense. They're second in the conference and 13th in the nation. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the transfers that have come in, they've actually done a pretty good job. But part of it, too, is I feel like this team's been down and people can run the football on Arizona a little bit easier. But they, I think some of the teams they've played, like when you play Oregon and Anthony Brown doesn't have a great game, the pass numbers aren't going to be that good. But they can, they can do some things. It's not just a hapless team that nothing's going for it. It just seems like it's like a Rodney Dangerfield team. There's some really bad luck that happens. Like it was pretty unlucky what happened against Washington to not be able to get that win. So that's one of those things. They can be dangerous. Like they've been feistier in games than Colorado has. Like Cal just throttled Colorado last weekend. They had 104 yards. 13 yards of offense, total offense in the second half for Colorado. Like, we haven't seen Arizona do that. Then they make some dumb plays. Will Plummer will throw a horrible screen pass interception to Washington, to a defensive lineman. Like, they make some mistakes like that, but they just haven't looked as inept as Colorado has at the time. So that's why I think this can be somewhat of a dangerous team. But the fact that we're even talking about that, like, USC has to do what Shotgun said, and just flex its muscles talent-wise and play a C- game and win comfortably. Drake London can go off, and I talked about this with Keely on the Peristyle podcast. Like, it might be a close game if Drake London has 15 catches for 180 yards and no touchdowns, or maybe one touchdown, as opposed to he has 12 catches for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like that, if he has that kind of game, then USC probably blows him out. But if he has the big numbers game like he had against Notre Dame, but just not a lot of scores, then it might be some kind of close game where this team ends up kicking more field goals than they'd want, and Arizona sort of hangs around.
I mean, the Notre Dame game, they threw to him both times right before they ran the ball in. If he scores on both those plays, does that change their offense? I mean, if he has the same 15 catches for 171 yards with 2 touchdowns, and they're a 2-yard touchdown and a 3-yard touchdown, I think it was, I don't think it really changes anything whether he gets in the end zone. The thing is, does the offense get in the end zone, in the red zone? And whether that's by running the ball in, And, the running backs get the credit, or Keaton Slovis throws a 2-yard pass to Drake London, and they, get a better block on one of those screen passes they threw to him, and he gets in the end zone. It doesn't matter. They just have to finish in the red zone, inside the 25. I mean, it wasn't technically a red zone, a couple of those trips.
Yeah.
They got to the 25, 4 straight trips, and got 3 points out of it.
Yeah, that's bad.
You just have to do better. I mean, that's unacceptable. And then Graham Harrell and Keaton Slovis both mentioned it this week during their availability, but they said, hey, even if we only get to 3 points, obviously they want to get to 7 points, but even if they only get 3 points on each of those drives, that's 9 points. That score late, even after missing the extra point, they were down 8. So if they score 3 points on each of those, could be a different game.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. They have to finish those drives, and if they finish with touchdowns, that's when you get the opportunity to blow a team out.
Yeah.
They should be able to drive the ball in Arizona every time because they've done it against much better defenses this season. Can you finish those drives, though? And that's been a big question mark for USC for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Now, Shotgun, you've been a proponent this season as the season developed for USC to lean more on its run game. What did you see from the Notre Dame game, and how can USC use that going forward?
I liked it against the Notre Dame game is they ran between the tackles a little bit more. They averaged, I think it was 6.5 yards per carry between the tackles, something like 4.1 or 4 point something outside the tackles. So they did more inside zone in that game, and that tells you they're leaning on those veterans, the 3 veterans they have in the interior, much more than the 2 freshmen on the outside. And the tight ends, because the tight ends, there's been issues trying to block out and getting that secondary block that turns that 3 or 4 yard run into an 8 or 10, and that's again for the offense has been an issue finishing those blocks at the second level. But I think Keontae Ingram is getting more and more in a groove, and I think Mike Jinks said this week that he thinks the ankle injury that he had before during fall camp, he's finally not really.
Overcompensating.
Yeah. That was the word that he used to try to do. Now he feels like he can do everything. He's getting a ton of yards when the offensive line blocks, and then the couple of times when there was a free rusher, he's making that guy miss. He's making the first guy miss, a few times. So they're not having those negative plays as much, and that's what's really hurt this offense. Is whether it be penalty, whether it be a 3 yard loss on a run, whatever it may be, the negative plays sometimes it just throws them completely off.
Yeah.
Like, okay, 2nd and 15, what do we do now? Oh, no.
They don't recover. So, the drive's over, basically.
And so that's been a big issue for them. And the biggest issue is actually after when they do make up for one of those plays is there's another one right there. Like as soon as in the Utah game, they had a 3rd and 18 or something, they got a 20-yard pass to Drake London, and almost immediately after they had a penalty or something that backed that play up. So they just can't get out of their own way. And that's why you're seeing so many teams back up on them. Like, all right, we'll give Drake London all those screen passes. And that's why USC keeps throwing them. They were 10 of 10 on screen passes for 130-something yards in this game. Or maybe not even that much, but maybe 100 yards, over 100 yards though. That's 10 yards on each of those screen passes in average because teams are like, as long as we don't give up the 30 or 40-yard pass to Drake London, we should be able to – they'll mess it up on their own.
They'll screw up at some point.
Somewhere, yeah. So, it's great that USC is taking advantage of those screens, and I would like to see Taj Washington get the ball in his hands a little bit or Gary Bryant sometimes and mix it up. I know Drake London's very difficult to tackle, but maybe one of those guys makes a guy miss and turns it into a little bit bigger gain. But, they're taking what the defense gives them, which is what they should do, but they shoot themselves in the foot way too often, and that blows up the drive.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we identified just finishing in the red zone as a solution for USC's offense. Over on defense, is there as clear of a solution besides maybe just making your tackles?
It seems you feel like we should have more analysis of it, but it's that simple. It really is that simple. Tackle. If they don't miss double-digit tackles, they get off the field on at least 3 more drives.
Yeah.
The first drive of the game, now Notre Dame ends up missing a field goal, but there's 8 more plays that they get during that drive because it's 3rd and 1. Chase Williams has an opportunity in the backfield, misses a tackle. Isaac Taylor-Stewart could potentially even make a tackle there, and he can't get him down before the line to gain, and suddenly they get another first down. They get a couple more first downs. But it really is. It's that simple. There's been so many times this season where, outside of the Oregon State game, that's really the only game where there's been wow, that guy's just wide open. where the scheme has just really fooled them. There's been a couple times where they've made some bad mistakes. The Notre Dame, that first touchdown they had, that was one player making a mistake, one player playing man coverage, and the rest of the team playing zone. That's going to leave a big opening. But outside of that, they've been in position a lot of the times, just not making that tackle, and that's killing them because it extends drives. It keeps those defenders on the field that much longer, and it puts that much more pressure on the offense. And obviously, they aren't doing great when there's extra pressure on them right now.
Yeah, and I think in general, you're seeing this defense sort of allow opposing offenses to do things that they don't normally do. I think Stanford had a pretty good rushing game against USC, and they're a pretty bad running team. They scored a lot of points. I mean, you're seeing teams, score their season high against the Trojans, stuff like that. Notre Dame wasn't known for long, sustained drives. It was more of like a USC thing where they had big plays. They had, 3 drives that went over 10 plays after having 8 through the first 6 games. 4 of their drives went 75 yards plus. So things that an offense isn't known for, the USC defense would give that up. So they're giving up more, they're letting them do things that are even out of their comfort zone. And that's a problem. The defensive ranks for USC are pretty bad. Like they're really, in the 90s or 100. Just in general, from the talent that this team has to what they're playing, there's some deficiencies for sure. But man, they're giving up a lot to some teams that just, they're making these offenses look better than they are a lot of times when USC plays them.
Well, I think what you want to do is you want to force teams to do what they're not good at, right? And USC can sometimes do that. I thought Notre Dame just made a really good adjustment during their bye week saying our pass game's not working. And their pass game had been predicated throughout the season on we're going to run the ball between the tackles and then we're going to play action and go for deep shots. And they tried that against USC. Chris Steele had a really good game outside the one penalty, and that one was a very tightly called play. So if you're getting mad at Chris Steele during this game, that's on you. He had a really good game. The deep shots that they took over and over early in that game, he said, no, you're not doing that today.
Yeah.
And so, but what they really did well is, okay, we saw that USC's playing a lot more zone in this game early. Let's just get the ball out of Jack Cohn's hand. They got, quick passes, finding Michael Mayer, him being in the lineup enabled them to do that because he'd been out for a couple games. But they were just, all right, run to the sticks, and if there's nobody on you, turn around, we'll hit you. And they did that multiple times and just kept the drives going. And it got the ball out of Cohn's hand, so he got some more confidence early. When they try to throw the ball long, they didn't get anything. The one completion they had over, I think, 15 yards, air yards, was by Tyler Buckner. The only other one that was completed was to Chris Steele with an interception. So they killed USC with the short gain and saying, okay, let's see if we'll throw it short and see if USC can tackle. And how many times did that work for them, throwing it 4 yards and then picking up 12 because USC missed a tackle?
Yeah.
We just got this comment on YouTube, and I'm wondering if you agree with it. Derek said USC is over-aggressive and over-pursue on defense. They don't even give the team a chance. We're out of the play before it even develops. Is that accurate?
I don't know why I would say they're out of the play before it develops. I don't think that's necessarily the case. You're not like having your edge rushers just taking off and, they get burnt by a bunch of screens and stuff. Not necessarily the case. It's, again, a lot of times a guy is there and just
doesn't make
missed the tackle. Yeah, it doesn't make the play. That 3rd and 13 later in the game, I think it was the fourth quarter, they just throw the ball, check it down, a little angle route to Kyron Williams. Both linebackers have a chance to make the tackle. Now he's going to get 7 or 8 yards, but it's 3rd and 13. That's fine. They're going to force a punt, but both linebackers miss a tackle on it. He gets the first down. That is a very emblematic play of how USC's defense has been.
But there's different failures each game. I think
Sure,
the Stanford and Oregon State games, there were some bad angles and some areas where you weren't containing people and a misdirection one way and a tight end goes free the other. Even the San Jose State game, we saw that a little bit. So it just depends. It seems like from week to week, there's an inconsistent way that this team is failing. But there's a lot of failures on defense. There's a defense that has to play better, and you want to try to get better. Playing against Arizona is a good. You have a good shot at that.
Mm-hmm. One last thing before we jump into questions. It's a specific question though. When it comes to USC's offensive line play, Clay McGuire talked about how Jonah Monheim was struggling against Notre Dame, and they kind of knew that coming in. It was a bad matchup. Shotgun, do you go with Jonah in this game to kind of boost his confidence, or do you go with Jalen McKenzie? We saw Jalen McKenzie get first-team reps in practice this week. What do you expect to see on Saturday?
And we had a question actually about this from Jasper. The offensive line played much better when McKenzie came in from Monheim. Will he get the start at right tackle? I would say that, and granted, I wasn't at Wednesday's practice, and you can't see too much during Wednesday anyway, but I think he's earned the start. Now, do I think he should play every snap? No, I think you need to get Monheim back in there, have him regain his confidence, and Arizona's a great opportunity for that because they don't have any elite pass rushers or anything. So, but, I think that McKenzie, and this is the way it should be. You earn something, you get it.
Yeah.
Not, well, we need to get that young guy some playing time. We need to get his confidence back so he's going to be back in there regardless. Or in the opposite realm, which was often the case that many people complain about with Clay Helton is, well, he's the veteran, he's more experienced, we're just going to put him in there. Who's earned it? And right now I think Jalen McKenzie has earned that spot. Now, I do want to note Jonah Monheim had been the 3 previous games, he had been in the top 6 of USC's Pro Football Focus grades on offense. So he had been playing a little bit better. And I think when Keely talked to Clay McGuire, he said, it was a bad matchup, and that's why there was such a quick hook on him. It's like they were worried about it going in, like, I don't know how this is going to go out. And once it was, like, all right, we just got to make this change. So I think at Arizona, you're going to look at it and be like, I don't think you're going to look at it and be like, I don't know how that matchup will work. I think you're going to look at it like he should be able to excel in this one. And that's the luxury of having that veteran guy that you can throw in there. And unfortunate for USC, it took 2 drives before they made that change, but ended up being, for the first one, 3 and out, and can't get anything going. But that second one, when you have the interception that comes off a play where Monheim and the entire right side kind of got beat, that was potentially a game-changing play. It didn't ultimately be the ultimate game changer in that one, but just continued the pattern that USC was behind, 17-3 going into half.
Mm-hmm. There was I thought it was a few weeks ago where McKenzie came in. We thought he would start the next game. Maybe he got hurt or something, but he didn't end up starting. Yeah, was it the Washington State one? Yeah, we thought he would see him again, and then if he got banged up, I don't remember, but he didn't end up starting the next game.
Yeah, that one, he took over over in that game and played the whole second half. And then we were like, oh, is he going to start this week? And then the Tuesday practice, he left the practice with, I don't know, dehydration or something like that.
Yeah, that's what happened. And it seemed like the coaches wanted him to push through it as well from their comments. So that's probably why he didn't get the start there. But we'll see. But I feel like that Washington State game actually kind of influenced that quick hook that Clay McGuire talked about for Jonah against Notre Dame. They kind of were prepared for that in that sense. Let's jump into some questions. First one is on Facebook from Troy Gruden, who said, Slovis isn't having the kind of season to justify a first-round pick. In the likely event he returns, what does that do to USC's quarterback recruiting and retention?
So I don't think you can worry about quarterback recruiting. They got Devin Brown right now, but, don't know how long he'll be committed. He's pretty tight with Graham Harrell, and Graham Harrell probably won't be back. But Keaton Slovis is not going to be a first-round pick anymore. I don't know. There's definitely a chance that he could come back just because he's not going to be a very high draft pick. He could transfer somewhere. He could go to the NFL. But I don't think you have to worry about recruiting all that much just because the whole class is going to be kind of a mess until they figure out who the next head coach is going to be. So if they get him, they can keep Devin Brown. That'd be great because he's a great prospect. But I think all of that stuff is kind of up in the air. I wouldn't worry about the Keaton Slovis part of it more than when do they hire the head coach.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the head coach. Slovis, whether he decides to stay or go, I think it's going to come down to the NFL grade that he gets. And I think he's played much better than some people realize as far as going through reads and doing some stuff better than what he did 2 years ago, and especially last year when he was having the arm issues and confidence issues. So it's not a strong quarterback class either, I don't think. A lot of the guys that were expected to be up at the top, including Slovis, Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, a lot of these guys haven't performed up to the expectation of being a top round pick. So, it may still be a draft that he can go in and be a second or third or fourth round, somewhere in those mid rounds, and still find a good fit. And, he may want to go ahead and make that move. But I think it ultimately comes down to the head coach. He's going to wait until they announce the head coach. And that's one of the things that actually, because those things are pushed up now, the schedule of hiring a new head coach is pushed up. I think that helps out with those guys that are making NFL decisions as well, because you go, okay, I'll wait and see what the coach, who the coach is going to be, what the system and all that stuff, and then I can make my decision, later in December or in January before the deadline for early entrance is. So I think that gives some options there, but yeah, I think it all comes down to the new head coach much more before you're worrying about the recruiting or what Slovis is going to do himself with the younger guys behind him.
Didi Diego on YouTube wanted to know, do you prefer Campbell or Franklin for USC's next head coach?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think both are great candidates. There's been, Franklin, I think, was rising, and then he loses to Illinois, and it's a kind of a weird thing. He says some weird stuff in press conferences, but I think either one of them would be really good head coaches at USC. I don't know if I prefer.
Just make a choice. Come on.
I'll go Franklin. I'll say Franklin.
See, I would go with Campbell.
Okay.
There you have it.
Yeah.
We got a question.
Obviously, there's much more candidates out there, but since we got a either or.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trojan is on YouTube is very invested in the Jaxson Dart saga. He said Dante
saga, huh?
Well, not saga, but every question from Trojan is about Dart. He said Dante said Dart is ready to go, so will Dart start?
Dart's not going to start.
No. He's not going to start. He might play, but I mean, Keely and I talked about this on the Peristyle podcast. What he brings to the table is the mobility factor, and there's a wow factor there. He's still wearing a knee brace. Like, I don't know. And if it's better to sit him because he's not as mobile as he could be, I mean, I'd rather, if you want just a spark, then put in Miller Moss, but people want to see Dart. I just don't know at this point. But I don't think he will be starting on Saturday.
This is my personal opinion, but again, going back to earning things, I don't think he's earned the right to start yet based on one game against Washington State when Keaton Slovis had better numbers against the same Washington State team last year. Now, if they have a game and it's similar to Texas-Oklahoma, where Keaton Slovis is struggling and he comes in the same game and he excels, then the conversation about starting changes to me.
Yeah.
But it's on equal footing would be Slovis last year versus Dart this year. Both of them won against Washington State. Both of them put up really good numbers, but Slovis put up even better.
Mm-hmm. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, my take is that if you suddenly start Dart, it's shifting the era of USC. You know what I mean? You're telling Keaton Slovis basically we've lost our confidence in you, and you might as well look somewhere else or make another move. Because how do you revert back from that? Well,
if you're Slovis if you were in that situation, you'd be like, well, let me see who the new coach comes in because I'm assuming that all these offensive coaches aren't going to be here, so maybe I can impress the next person. So maybe you don't automatically transfer. But,
fair.
I think it comes down to earning it, and I think if Dart does something in the same game, outperforms Keaton Slovis, then that conversation comes up. But right now, I think Slovis is playing well enough, not great, but well enough that he still earns that right as the experienced guy.
Why do you defend Slovis so much, man? Jeez.
Because I watch every play multiple times and see that it's not always his fault like some people think it is.
Yes.
Shotgun, I'm going to need a pronunciation assist here because I'm going to probably botch it. Mark on YouTube wanted to know, will SC go after Kingsley Suamatia, who just entered the portal?
I believe you nailed it right there.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, USC will definitely be going after him. Who on the staff will be doing that, I don't know. But as he was their number one offensive line target last cycle, they would definitely be going after him now that he's in the portal again because they already have a relationship with him. Vianney Talamavayo, his dad coaches the Giant Skills camps and stuff that are done in Utah, so they already know him there. So I think that they will definitely be reaching out to him and trying to get him to come to USC in the transfer portal.
We got a question on Facebook from Brandon who said, with how the team is playing, how solid are the commitments of current recruits?
Not very solid, I would say.
It's even
everything's up in the air.
Yeah, it's less about how the team's performing, actually. It's more about the uncertainty. And this was the whole thing with the 2020 class. People were like, oh, no one wants to come because Clay Helton, they don't like Clay Helton. It's like, no, everyone actually has a great relationship with Clay Helton. They always talk about Clay Helton as a positive when they're being recruited to USC. The problem is no one wants to commit somewhere and then have the head coach be fired immediately after you get there, and then you go, okay, does this next guy like me? I liked Clay Helton, and we had a good relationship, but, when whoever comes in as the head coach, when Ryan Abraham comes in, is Ryan Abraham going to like me, or is Ryan Abraham going to be like, you're trash, I don't know why you're here?
I would say that, probably, yeah.
Like Brett Bielema did with his offensive line, yet they come out
and then they win?
Get a top 10 win, whatever.
It's pretty funny.
That was just insane game. We got a question, from Kenneth, who said, what do you think of Graham Harrell's play calling? Is he actually putting guys in a position to succeed with play calling, or is it a lack of execution that's mainly hampering this offense?
I would distinguish between play calling and what the offensive scheme is. It just doesn't seem to – it's not the gumbo, but there's some there's a lot of inefficiencies, I think, with this offense. It is an offense that's running the football a lot better, but there's just too many yards and not enough points. So I would say it's not like calling this play versus that play. It's just the overall scheme of what's going on. I just don't think they're putting the players in a great position to succeed.
Yeah, especially in the red zone. This offense is predicated on running the green grass. Well, the grass shrinks and the space shrinks in the red zone, and they haven't figured out a way to be able to still punch the ball in the end zone. So I think it's more on Graham Harrell's play calling there than execution when it comes to the red zone. I don't think that they do really well between the 20s, and then everyone just freaks out and doesn't execute. I mean, there's mistakes along the way from the 20s as well. So I think they're able to overcome that more when there's a little bit more space. They can throw it deep. They can push, defenders back, be able to attack with the screens a little bit more because defenders are playing farther off. Well, in the red zone, everyone takes a step forward or 2 steps forward, depending on how close you get to the end zone, and they haven't been figured out how to answer some of those issues that they've had.
Andrew on YouTube says, why are there no talks about Kyle Whittingham being USC's next head coach? He's perfect for the Trojans.
Why is he perfect? I don't know. I mean, we need some reasons why. He's thinking about retiring, he's been doing it. He was at Utah for 16 years, 17 years, something like that. I would say that's far from perfect. He's a Utah guy through and through. That's just not he could be a good candidate for USC, but I don't know how you could ever say he's perfect for USC.
There's no perfect candidate.
Yeah. He's not close to being a perfect candidate.
And one of the issues that I have with Kyle Whittingham is I like some of the things and some of the reasons why people like about him. The trenches, he answers a lot of the questions that USC has struggled with in the past. But he also has not done really well in big games.
Yeah.
They've had really good opportunities to take that next step. They've taken a big step from Mountain West to being in the Pac-12 and being a Pac-12 South contender pretty much every year. They haven't really taken that next step, and I wonder why that necessarily is. You look at, was it 2 years ago, 2019, through 10 wins, and then they lose to Oregon, get blown out in the championship game, and then they get blown out in the bowl game to Texas.
They've had bad offenses. I mean, you had Cam Rising on your roster who looks great right now. He wasn't the starter going into the season. He looks as good as they've had since 2018, like Tyler Huntley. Like, you want a guy that's not really known for offenses and stuff? Yeah, I just don't see him being a perfect candidate. But he's probably going to retire as a Utah head coach, and that would be the end of it.
Never know.
Gray Fox on YouTube wanted to know, was Keaton Slovis really better than JT Daniels or just healthier?
I thought JT Daniels was the best quarterback coming out of that camp.
Yeah, me too.
And apparently the coaches did too because he won the job, and then he got hurt after one half of football. And he looked really good in that one half of football that he had. So, it's not like we can say, oh, he looked like trash then too, like he did his freshman year when he had no offensive line help. It looked like, oh, JT Daniels in this offense could be really good. And then, unfortunately, he was injured.
Yeah.
So is your answer healthier?
Yeah. I mean, he won the job, so that tells you everything. And then there was no competition after that, even though people want to say that he lost the job after that.
No, he transferred, yeah.
Alex on YouTube has a question for Shotgun. He says, how can you keep mentioning Keaton's Washington State performance last year when he has regressed this year? How can you compare last year's Keaton to this year's Dart performance?
What? Are we watching the same games? Because did you not remember last year what he did? Now, he was really great in that last 2 minutes. But the 58 before that, not always. There was a lot of fluffer balls, flutter balls out there. Drake London going up and making catches over people in the middle of the field when the ball is just, twirling, not spinning. And there were times when he would miss receivers last year, and he talked about it. His arm, he was struggling with his arm, and then he lost his confidence. That hasn't been the case this year. He's driving the ball at times, putting the ball on people. Great throw to Malcolm Epps, that first drive, the second half. I mean, that's the type of throw that we weren't necessarily seeing last year outside of that last 2 minutes when he somehow would just clear the cobwebs and be able to go. So I don't think he's regressed from last year at all. I think he's going through his reads, and I think he's an improved quarterback each season that he's been at USC.
We got a question from Jesse on YouTube who said, Damani Jackson visits Alabama on November 6th. What are the chances he backs off his commitment?
I mean, I don't think it necessarily just from that visit, but I think it's definitely a possibility. Anyone could, back off their commitment because of what's going on. But as long as Dante is there, I think that is the key for that individual relationship, that individual recruitment, because that's his guy. So now if the new coach comes in and says, I don't want anybody here, then I think Damani then kind of opens it up and looks. But I don't think that's going to happen until, there's any clarity on with Dante, because that's the guy that he committed to. That's the guy he has a great relationship with.
Yeah, it's tough. Recruiting is it's like limbo. You're just in limbo right now. There's an answer out there, and it's who's going to the next head coach is going to be. Depends on the timing and all that. Visits are going to happen. Things are going to happen, but everything's going to kick into high gear once you figure out who the next head coach is going to be.
We had a question on Facebook from Brandon who said, with how the that's the old question. What a question from Anthony on Facebook who said, not saying Slovis has to be a running QB. However, his pocket awareness has been poor. I know USC's offensive line hasn't done him any favors, but he has gotten a few drive-killing sacks because he held on the ball too long. Do they work on this at practice?
The problem with that, and I agree with that, I think that's one of the issues he has this year, is that, and granted, he held on the ball a long time as a freshman, but that's something that should be progressed. He would hold on to it and hope someone would create something and get open. You got to know, all right, what's the clock ticking in my head, when I need to get rid of the ball, when I at least need to get out of the pocket and create some different angles, and maybe someone else gets open there. That's one of the biggest issues. And unfortunately, that's something you can't really practice or something you can't really go through at practice when you have yellow non-contact jerseys on the quarterbacks. You're not really getting a pressure because the defense line gets there and does this, and they go sack, sack, sack. The defensive line coaches are, the defense coaches are screaming that they want that sack, and that's when they're doing 1v1 competition or 1v2 competition, which isn't very often after a fall camp. So it's just one of those things that you don't get a great feel for. That's one of the reasons, like Sam Darnold, a guy like that, we saw some glimpses of it. Like maybe he could do something because we had seen it in high school. Maybe he has some escapability, but you don't really know that until you get in a real game and you go, wow, that guy has some unique traits there. And that's the same thing with Jaxson Dart. We've seen a little bit of it, but I think we would have to see it in a game to actually be able to get a full feel for how much he can avoid the rush and how much he can escape, things like that.
Jeff on Facebook wanted to know, would the offense be helped with a 15-play script to start the game?
I don't know exactly how Graham Harrell runs it, but they run a lot of new stuff early in games, new formations, new looks, and so I think it's probably all a part of a script in some form or fashion, but they use a lot of new stuff, and their first quarters have been really good as far as yards per play. It's the second and third quarters that it hasn't been, and I don't know. And I asked Dante Williams about this, I believe, last week, and the play calling, the creativity of it, because Keontae Ingram said that they need to be more creative. And Dante said maybe we, just go back and rely on our base stuff, our tried and true stuff more after halftime, and maybe that's an issue. Maybe they need to save some stuff. I don't know exactly how they need to go about it, but there's been a big difference between first quarter moving the ball versus second and third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, it's been hard to give a true evaluation of, because they've been playing backups at times.
Jeff on Facebook also wanted to know, will Miller Moss get some time soon?
Honestly, this would be the game that you would like to finish those drives in the red zone and score 21 points in the first quarter, maybe 21 points in the second quarter. And then you can go into the third quarter, and if you're up 42-7 or whatever, you score the first drive again. You go, all right, let's get Jackson some time and give him a full quarter of action from the middle of the third quarter, the middle of the fourth quarter, and then you get Miller Moss in there at the end, if that's what you want to do. Like these are the type of games when, if you're in Alabama, a true blue blood program playing at its full effect, you blow out a team, and then you get the second string guys in, and then maybe you even get the third string guys in a little bit at the end.
Yeah, I just don't see that scenario happening at all. Like, yes, ideally, but when has that happened? Like, when could you get the third string quarterback in, let alone the second? I think the path for Miller Moss to play is it's going to be Jaxson Dart still not mobile enough to get out there, and USC gets up at a big lead, and Moss comes in instead of Dart because they just don't want to see him out there and risk any more injury. But to expect them to be up big enough that the second string comes in, and then you even have time for the third string. Like that's just.
I'm just telling you the way it would ideally work.
That's ideally, but that's like, yeah, that's another universe from where this team has usually been playing.
Mm-hmm. Alan on Facebook wanted to know how long until a Pac-12 team plays in a national championship game.
I mean, it doesn't look like anytime soon. Like Oregon can still make a playoff this year, but I don't think they're going to win out. That win over Ohio State's big, but without that win over Ohio State, like they wouldn't be in the top 10 probably. It's tough. Yeah, I mean, Oregon's your best shot right now. USC gets a great coach. They have a shot in a couple years. But I mean, not seeing like, oh, they're just on the cusp of making a national championship game. It just doesn't look that close. They don't look like a Georgia or an Alabama or anything. No one in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
When Oregon has a good quarterback, and especially if they could combine a good quarterback with Joe Moorhead, if they keep him around, then I think they're a team you look at as potentially being able to take that next step. But other than that, outside of that Ohio State win, I don't think the Pac-12 has a good win, do they? I mean,
LSU.
They have more bad losses than
is
good
LSU
wins.
a good win?
And I said that from the beginning.
It's a
Everyone
solid
was like,
win.
UCLA, oh my God. No. Brandon said, do you think Drake London is the #1 wide receiver for the Blitnikoff Award?
Yes.
Don't all agree at once. Hold on. Coley
You
White.
tell us not to agree all at
No,
once
that
and
was
then
good.
say good.
That was good. That was good. I'm sorry. Coley White said, if USC does not achieve bowl eligibility, will we see the Trojans immediately play sophomores and freshmen?
They asked Dante Williams about that tonight, this morning, not tonight. This has been a
Long day for you, Ryan.
It's been a long day. Yeah, and he was like, I'm not playing. The goal is not to play young players. The goal is to play the right players. So he's still thinking about playing who's going to give yourself the best chance. Now, they might mix it up a little bit, but they're not going to be emptying the bench because the season is lost. And so I guess if they got to 7 losses, which would be what? They'd have to – then maybe the last game or two they could say, okay, we're not making a bowl game, maybe play younger players, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be Dante Williams' MO.
So we got a question or a comment on Facebook that said from Larry, Stanford, Oregon State, and Utah were perfect opportunities to get Miller Moss some experience, but no, USC kept Keaton in. I know that's something we have talked about and debated, but at that point, you say we do what Larry said, not we, but USC does. You're at the 3-game mark and Dart's not healthy. You're kind of risking Miller Moss's redshirt, and that seems like something at this point you would want to protect, right?
Yeah, he's only played 1 game so far, but USC's just been bad at getting people in any kind of meaningful snaps. I mean, poor Max Brown, like the first meaningful snap he had was against Alabama, and he was around the program for a long time. They weren't able to get him any meaningful snaps. It's just something USC's been terrible at, and yeah, I'm not going to look at it like, oh, this was strategy. It's just like they're just not been good at it.
Fair enough. We got a question from Neil on YouTube who said, question for Shaka, an online grade for 2021. Maybe offensive line grade?
I think it means
okay.
offensive line.
O-line. That'll go with that.
Mine, I think they perform much better than they were last year. I think it's been a big improvement. There's still been some inconsistency, and that's probably the biggest issue, which is kind of to be expected when you have 2 redshirt freshmen, 2 second-year freshmen playing at the 2 bookend positions. So, I think they've done some good things, but still, like the Notre Dame game, people don't notice probably how well they ran the ball and pay attention to how well they played outside of the sacks. But that's what happens. Just like a cornerback, you get burnt one time. That's what people are going to remember. Not you batted down 3 other passes and did this really well. Doesn't matter if you get burnt deep. A defensive end can have a great game and play 3 plays really well.
Yeah.
It can be terrible the rest of the time. It gets shoved out of bounds on every other play. But if they win 3 reps and get to the quarterback, that's a great game by that guy, right? And those are the type of positions where you have to be good all the time. There's we played good most of the time. 90% of the time, we did really well. Doesn't matter. What'd you do on the other 10% of the time, the other 5% of the time? And that's what the offensive line has been an issue for them. But consistency has been a little bit of an issue, but they're much more improved from where they were last year, even without that first-round pick at left tackle.
Even like 2 years ago, just like the number of sacks they've given up, they're running the ball more consistently.
Yeah.
The offensive line has played better.
Has anyone really mentioned this year and been super upset during games when USC can't pick up a 3rd and short? No, because they picked him up almost every one of them this season. The one or two times when they haven't, on at least 3rd and 1, they've run the ball on the next play on a 4th down and picked it up. They've been really good in that area, and that is something that had been ferocious previously.
Ferocious.
Ferocious.
We have that soundbite over there if you want.
We got a question from Mike who said, could Coach Dante be kept on as a special recruiter for the team and not having anything to do with the game field or field decisions going forward?
Like next year, like
I believe that's what he was asking. Yes.
yeah, I don't think Dante Williams wants to be like, I'm going to be a recruiter on staff and have nothing to do with.
He's not going to become a support staff member.
Yeah, that's essentially what he would be. So,
and I think
that's a pretty big step down from the head coach.
He's a good cornerbacks coach. Some people have complained about the cornerbacks this year. Well, they've been taken out of his hands, so that's been a little bit different there to judge him on. But I think that USC would. I think they would like to keep him around. I don't know if that for sure. I haven't talked to anyone that have said that.
I would agree with you, yeah.
But the steps that they've taken in the past to keep him around, making him associate head coach last year, giving him a big pay bump, that tells me, hey, we really like this guy. And, hey, maybe he's not set out, he's not cut out to be the head coach at this point. But we still really like him. We'd like to keep him around in a different capacity. What that capacity is it going back to the cornerbacks coach? Is it secondary coach? Is it, co-defense coordinator, defense coordinator? I don't know exactly what they would have to do to keep him around because I know there's other teams that are going to be looking at him too and saying, he may not be our head coach, but we really like that guy. We'd like to get him on, on staff in a different capacity. So,
Shotgun, I know we both thought it was interesting, Dante's comment after practice on Tuesday when he was asked about Chris Steele, and he was like, well, I've been coaching him a little bit more, so maybe it has to do with me, but maybe not. Like he kind of hedged whether or not him coming back to coach the DBs a little bit more was helping.
Yeah, he said that he was more hands-on with Chris Steele, especially during the bye week and stuff, and Chris Steele played better. And he's like, oh, maybe it's me. Well, maybe it's not me, but maybe it's
yeah.
I think he heard what he said and was like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right.
That's funny, yeah.
I thought it was funny.
But, yeah, Dante's a guy that, again, every single game for him is an audition as well.
Yes.
Like, same thing for all these coaches. Michael Hutchings is a linebacker coach. He interviewed for a couple different positions this last year in the offseason, ended up staying with USC. This is an audition for him. Each of these games, can linebackers get better as they go along? Can he show that when he goes to an interview for Wisconsin or wherever that has an opening? These are all auditions. So if Dante Williams suddenly turns things around in the last 5 games and they play much better and you can point to it and say that was Dante Williams doing, then some other team, maybe it's a Mountain West team, maybe it's a lower level Power 5, might look at it, and if they have an opening, go, Dante Williams might be our head coach. We can grow with him, and we'll see what he can do going forward. Who knows? That could be the case. So each game is an audition for him, and USC may not be able to keep him around because somebody else may want him as a head coach.
We're almost at the top of the hour, so if you want to get any last-minute rapid-fire questions in, please do so now. We got a question from Rick Moore on YouTube who said, how much longer is it going to be before we find out who the next head coach is going to be? It's almost November. They need to get recruiting going now.
Yeah. What's the how long is a piece of string? Like, we don't know how long it's going to be before they name the next head coach. Yes, recruiting is important. It is not important as hiring your next head coach. And so I feel like that's where the focus is going to be. If it takes till December 1st and you get a couple weeks of recruiting, that's great. If it takes till December 18th and you're hiring the coach right as the early signing period starts, so be it. If it takes till January, whatever you got to do to get the next head coach, that's the big decision. Yes, we talked about this before. It's going to be tougher for the head coach to come in with a lesser recruiting class, and the longer you wait, the less relevant that recruiting class is going to be. But the most important thing by far is hiring who the head coach is going to be. So I think they would like to get someone early, but they're not going to say we have to get someone early. So let's get someone that's not as good because we can get them 2 weeks earlier.
Yep. Alex on YouTube wanted to know, did anyone ask Coach Williams about timeout management this week?
I did.
I think I did.
Did I?
One of us.
Oh, no, I followed up. I think too. Yeah. Yeah. I think I asked him like how
I think
hard.
you started and I folled up. There we go.
Maybe it was something like that. Yeah.
It was a tag team effort. That's what we know.
Because it's like, obviously this is not something he had to do before. And, he talked about there's charts that he uses. There's a lot of things that you can kind of consult. But once you're in the game, I think it's a whole different thing. And I think you specifically asked him about like wasting some of these timeouts, and he kind of had reasons for all of them, but especially in the second half, you never want to use. I mean, they used a defensive timeout on a first down. Like, it's like, okay, well, they just got a first down. Like, you got to go out there and stop somebody. You can't. You're wasting these timeouts, and then at the end of the first half, you didn't have any timeouts to stop the clock, and you lost points for yourself. Like, was more important to call that first down timeout on defense or a timeout right after Notre Dame called a timeout? Like, those to me are wasted timeouts. So not blaming Dante Williams. He's learning on the job and this kind of stuff too.
Yeah, you can't use 3 timeouts on defense, though.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trailing in a game. It comes back to bite you in that end-of-half situation. Obviously, using a timeout right after they use a timeout on the fourth down. Granted, I understand it. Go out there and you go, ooh, we don't like this look. Let's use a timeout and get the right call. And, they pick up the first down running the ball. But if you're going to do that, you should have the next play call already planned, basically. And that was actually an issue because Kedon Slovis looked over the sideline, got the sign that was being signaled in. He thought it was a tempo run play. And he said, he's like, when I talked to him this week, he said, if I actually thought about it and thought through, I would say that's not right. We're going to want a pass player here, right? But the wrong signal he saw the wrong signal. It said it was a brief signal. He just caught it, and it's tempo, so he's trying to go quick. But you should be able to call that second play in the huddle.
Yeah.
4th and 2. All right, when we pick this up,
Here's what we're gonna do. Yeah.
This is the next play we're going to run. They didn't have that. They were looking for a signal. Okay, let's see how many yards we get, whatever. They ran the ball, but the next play, that's when they should have spiked the ball, and that was the big concern. That was the big thing that Dante Williams was mad about because he wanted the spike to be called then. You can look at Kedon Slovis as he's coming off the field. He's talking to Stanton Keene, who's the guy that signals in all the plays, and he's doing some signals because there was some miscommunication there, some mix-up, and that was an issue. But yeah, again, it goes all goes back to
if you have a timeout, then you can alleviate a lot of that stuff.
Yep. We have a question from Anthony on Facebook who said, I know you guys don't think putting in Dart would make an improvement. Aside from his mobility compared to Slovis, I think his energy is infectious. Slovis's body language isn't the best on the sideline, and he doesn't seem to be a vocal leader. Do you think Dart can be an improvement over Slovis when you factor in the intangibles?
That's the one area where you can't quantify that, but also that's the one area where I think if you get into a game and Slovis is struggling, that's when I think you put in Dart and you go with it and see how it goes because he can bring a boost of energy because he does some different things. The fans will get excited about it. The team kind of picks up on the fan excitement, and maybe that does lead them to. Now, do you start Dart? I don't think that's the case, but I think that if things aren't going well, and it could be as quick as 2 drives into a game. Like this isn't working, similar to the Jonah Monheim situation. I think we have a better matchup and go to Dart, and if it works out, you go with it, and then that's when you discuss him being a starter going forward. But, I think it starts with Kedon Slovis being the starter because I think that when is Kedon Slovis just completely sucked in a game? No, they move the ball consistently. They suck as a team in the red zone and the scoring opportunities they have.
I think if anything, it's going to spark the fans. Like fans just want to see it. Like so many of our fans just want to see Dart in there. And if you're trying to win fans back, that's probably something you're going to do. But I don't think you want to do that if he's hurt at all and stuff. So.
But do you also do that at the expense of Kedon Slovis? Like I don't know if that's worth it in that sense.
Yeah, it's all been managed very strangely. Like Dante Williams has been asked a million times about if Kedon Slovis is the starter, and he hasn't said he's the starter. Like even when Dart was hurt, like there was just some weird stuff going on, and I'm not blaming anyone. I mean, there's just been when you have bad leadership for this long, there's just going to be things that just don't feel right, and it's just not felt very right. So that's why you need a new head coach to come in and go, okay, that's dumb. We're never doing that again. Fix that. No, I don't want to see that again. Like that's what you need a new head coach. You need it at the athletic department. So Mike Bone comes in and fixes a bunch of crap. You need a new head coach to come in and fix a whole bunch of crap.
Yeah, that's what I just don't understand. I mean, I had this moment in the Jaxson Dart scrum this week where I wanted to ask him, is it weird that we're asking you questions every week like this, considering you're the backup? It was just, it just seems a little weird that there's so much tension when technically there shouldn't be, you know? I don't know. It's kind of odd in that sense. Strange. We got a question from Super OC Holmes on YouTube who said, Darnold impressed on the scout team as a freshman. Even Wolf saw that he was special before he started. I think he's talking about Scott Wolf. Darnold wasn't throwing interceptions. Does Dart have the same presence in practice?
So right now Miller Moss is running the scout team, but you're like when Darnold was a freshman, yeah, he was impressive. Like, and Moss has done some really nice things on the scout team, but Dart's mostly been doing second team offense stuff. So it's a little bit, it's hard to compare, I would say, because he's not going against the first team offense. I mean, the first team defense like Darnold was doing, and they're like, man, that guy's good. Which you could see that. You're like, man, yeah. Darnold made somebody transfer. Why am I blanking on his name? Like Ricky Town?
Ricky Town.
Ricky Town, like, transferred. Ricky Town came in the spring. Darnold didn't arrive till the summer. And within a few weeks, Town was out, That's because you kind of knew Darnold had that it factor. I wouldn't say.
Ricky Town also transferred because he threw 3 interceptions in the same PRP.
I think it was 5.
He threw, was it 3
I think
straight?
It was 5. I think he had 8 throws.
He didn't play well.
We filmed it. He had 8 throws. I believe there was 5 picks. Like, it was, and we tried to mix them up. Because we're not trying to like embarrass the kid when we could film them. We can't film them anymore. But we want to show the interceptions because like the defensive players are good. Yeah. So that was a tough situation.
Mm-hmm. Ron on YouTube says, isn't the so-called Slovis quote-unquote regression due to a large extent to the loss of so many great receivers to graduation or the NFL draft?
I think it's a big difference in the offense right now. I think being able to throw it up to Michael Pittman or Drake London or Tyler Vaughns, that makes a lot different. Or having someone who's pretty much always open in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Their receivers are not consistently open. Drake London is consistently open. The rest of the group is not consistently open.
Gorilla on YouTube wanted to know, do you think there's mutual interest between USC and Tomlin, but Carson Palmer accidentally blew it?
No. Tomlin did not look interested at all.
What? You don't think that was interesting?
The NFL is a different beast. And he does
so mad.
Yeah, and which doesn't make sense because some of that's unfair because there were some sort of like racial undertones where he mentioned a bunch of other.
That's what yeah.
It's sort of, but like Sean Payton was talked about with different jobs. John Gruden was like, these are Super Bowl winning coaches that are Caucasian, and they also were talked about for college jobs. So I don't get the if that's what he was insinuating. I didn't get that part, but. There's people that are like, dude, we're NFL head coaches. We do not want to go to college. And I get it. I mean, it's like, but that does not look like someone that's looking to better his career by being at a college blue blood. He's at a NFL blue blood, and that's where he's looking at. That's the ultimate of where to be.
Shotgun, based on our notes, it sounds like you want me to bring up this question. How Hug said, oh my God, did Blind Bat Shotgun just say Slovis has improved? Weren't you guys just saying Slovis may return since his draft stock is plummeting?
Yes. And yes, but what is draft stock? Draft stock is potential. You go into this season, and Spencer Rattler's at the top of the list, Sam Howell's at the top of the list, Keaton Slovis at the top of the list, with Malik Willis, maybe even Dorian Thompson-Robinson. These are all top 10 quarterbacks you're looking at for draft because it's potential. After they have a really good junior season, this is where they could go. But 3 or 4 of those guys that I just mentioned haven't had really good junior seasons. So, yeah, but has he regressed from where he was last year? No, but where he could be and where this offense could be, I think, is a different answer there. So I think it's a little bit of both still.
But he's regressed from 2019. Like, he doesn't look anywhere near as good as he did then.
Well, I think that
throwing 400 yards
the
per
offense
game and all that
has
stuff.
regressed because
fair.
had those 4 wide receivers. I think he's making better decisions. Like I mentioned it before, coming out of the 2019 season, I said, we got away with a few there.
Yeah.
And by a few, I meant a good many. That hasn't necessarily been the case this year. Some of the interception, the Oregon State game, those were bad interceptions, but some of them are like he's getting hit and the ball flutters up in the air. The ball bounces off the chest of a receiver. Some things have been a little bit more out of his control this season, I feel like. But the things that he's doing as far as his pocket mobility, as far as reading his progressions and going through them, I think there have been improvements there. And I think that if you asked one of the offensive coaches about his, has he regressed, and they give you a true, honest answer, I think they would tell you that he has improved in a number of areas.
Coley said, do you feel the crowd turnout on Saturday will be good, or has the mood soured on this season? It is also homecoming for the Trojans this weekend.
I think that's the saving grace for the attendance.
Yeah, that it might be okay because of homecoming, but that's really the only reason. And I just don't know. I don't think it's going to be that good.
Tim said over-under on how many snaps Ishmael Sopsher will get this week. Todd Orlando was asked about it, and he said he played just okay. And he mentioned, I thought conditioning would be an issue for Sopsher, and it was. So how many do you expect snaps for Sopsher this week?
What did he play, 7 the last game?
7. I think it was 7 or 8. It was since I wasn't there Wednesday, the questions I would want to ask is, why did he play 6 straight snaps and then not play the rest of the game? Like, what happened there? That seems confusing to me. And Vic Soto after the game thought he did some nice things, so it just doesn't make much sense to be like, all right, we're done with this kid. He's not playing anymore this game, when it's not like he was getting, he's not getting thrown around or anything. He was holding the point fine. He didn't do much as far as being active, but he took up 2 blockers, which is what you want that nose tackle to be able to do at times. So I was just confused by played him once on the first or second drive, and then one drive he gets in and he's in 6 straight snaps, and that's it. His helmet came off, and he didn't come back to the field again.
Wow.
So it just seemed kind of weird, the usage of him, because it wasn't like, oh, there's a specific package for this situation in a game, and we're only going to use him in that, which is what you see Corey Foreman. People say, why is he not playing more? He's on a certain package. If they were forcing more 3rd and longs, you'd see more of him. But with Sopsher, that one was just kind of confusing to me. So I don't know what to expect of him going forward. I mean, he was in there on Tuesday. He was getting the normal reps that he had been getting for the most part, maybe even a little bit less. So I don't know. That would be an interesting one for me on Saturday as well.
We shall see. Alrighty, let's get into some rapid-fire questions and then wrap this one up. Tim also wanted to know about the impact of Max Gibbs. Is he still getting a lot of second-team reps?
Yeah, he did move back last week. He moved back and did some scout team a little bit. I expected him to play a little bit more than he already has. So, I don't know if they feel like he's kind of plateaued and hasn't been able to take that next step to be able to jump into games, but he hasn't got in outside of what they call their goon package, which is their goal line situation where they put him in.
We got a question from Brandon on Facebook, who said, how much is USC listening to alumni like Carson Palmer and Anthony Munoz?
So they came out with public statements on different shows about the coaching search. Honestly, I mean, we're not hearing much out of USC. I don't think I think they'll listen to just about anything, but I feel like this is something that Mike Bohn, Brandon Salzman are going to do. If you want to give them feedback, you can, but I don't think if Anthony Munoz says do this and they didn't really want to do it, they're going to do it.
What it sounds like to me from that Anthony Munoz conversation and the Carson Palmer one was that they're doing exactly what they did when Mike Bohn was hired. Let me listen, get everyone's opinions, and then we'll go make our own decision from that. But I think that's what you want if you're an alum. I want to have an input. I want to be able to tell you, now you're going to go, well, whatever Carson Palmer says, that's what we're going to go with, or whatever this one person. No. If everybody says these are the characteristics that you really need, maybe that's, kind of changes your direction that you're going after that. So I think Anthony Munoz said it's like 25 guys that they're talking to. I think that's great. I think you're getting those opinions from people that you value and then going and making your own decision after that. I think that's the right way to go about any kind of decision, really.
We got a question from Larry on Facebook who said, is Kyle Ford having stamina issues? Seems like he should be playing opposite of Drake London.
You can put it up. I just asked about that, yeah.
Stamina issues? He's not playing enough to have any stamina issues.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. There was another one, too, about Manjack, who started the first game. We haven't seen him around. It's just been weird with the rotation of wide receivers. You're just not seeing much. I mean, it's the Drake London show, and that's kind of it.
Kyle Ford did play more this last game, more offensive snaps than he's played in his career. So he was actually, previously this season, he had been the backup to Drake London. So he would sub in at times when Drake London, like the Washington State game, he'd sub in when Drake London needed a rest or his helmet popped off. This last game, he was in the rotation with Gary Bryant and Taj Washington, the 2 other guys. So he was playing a little bit different position, but he was in the rotation. So that tells you, he's taking that step forward for them there. Same thing with Manjack. He's backed up Drake London at times. He's been in the rotation with the other guys at times. So no one's really taken that step forward. Taj Washington is the only consistent, and they really like his blocking ability on the outside and the fact that he is constantly giving effort blocking. And Gary Bryant has, when they've used him and found different ways to get in the ball, he's been really good as well. But those are the 3 guys that have been consistent.
He had those 3 games where he had a touchdown and then not much sense. Someone also asked, was he even targeted at Notre Dame? Did he do much at Notre
Taj
Dame?
or Gary Bryant?
Gary Bryant.
Gary Bryant had 2 catches on 3 targets.
Okay.
We had a question from Alex who said, who or which unit is the unsung hero outside of Drake London?
Is there any heroes outside of Drake London?
Yeah.
Who would you say?
Drake Jackson's been really good on the defensive side. Tuli
Tuli,
has been kind of an unsung hero probably. But I don't know what my answer would be. Do you have a different one than either one of those guys?
I don't know. I'm having a hard time finding heroes.
Keontae Ingram. I'm trying to give you options here, Ryan, because the answer for unsung hero is Ben Griffiths. He's been really good.
He's
Obviously,
been utilized quite a bit.
Yeah, you don't want your punter to be utilized as much as they have, but when they've had it, actually he hasn't been used too much. It's not like he's having 6 or 7 punts a game because they're getting down in the red zone and then everything's messing up.
He doesn't get to do that, but that's a good one. Okay.
I legally cannot talk about punters anymore, but I would like to say that it's been impressive.
I do like the way Keontae Ingram's come in and played, and just sort of just for the very beginning, he didn't care if he was number 4, number 3, number 2. He was just like, I'm just come out and play. He was like co-starter or whatever with Vavai, then he's just sort of been taken over, and now he's a one-man show basically back there. They put Barlow in a little bit, but yeah, I like the way he's just sort of kind of kept his nose down, and he's played really well.
Alex also wanted to know, Ryan, what do you think of Matt Rule for the Panthers, from the Panthers for USC's next head coach?
So that's a little different than an NFL coach because he did come from college. That would basically be if USC is interested, which I think he would be a good candidate. And he, for some reason, isn't really enamored with the NFL and would like to come back. It's very different than like the Tomlin thing, who's just been NFL through the whole way. But if you find someone that's like that, that's like, hey, I really just kind of want to get back to college. Some of the stuff that we do here is different, coaching multimillionaires versus recruiting 16-year-olds. If he likes that better, I think that's someone that USC would be smart to at least talk to.
Alrighty, gentlemen, I'm going to go to game predictions now. How do you think this one's going to go on Saturday?
So it's a 21-point spread. It's just a lot of points. And there's definitely scenarios where USC comes out and they take advantage of the red zone chances. Arizona looks hapless. And it's like Shotgun said, 21, it's like 42-0 at half or 42-7 at half or something. I just think that's somewhat unlikely. This is a lot of points. USC, struggled to score so often against, mediocre teams. Arizona does enough stuff that's good. I feel like they're going to keep this somewhat close, and maybe USC scores some late touchdowns or something at the end. But I feel like it's going to be like a 35-17 kind of game, something like that. USC wins, but probably not by more than 3 scores.
21 points is just scary with a USC team
that
underperforms.
It's way I mean, Washington last week was favored over Arizona by 17 or 18, something like that, and they only scored 21, and they were down 16-0. So yeah.
All I know is that USC is going to win because I've already told Ryan that I'm done for the season if they lose. So
yeah,
Ryan's not very happy about that because he feels like Arizona has a legit shot.
I don't think that they should not have a legit shot. But I'm trying to show you the path of if we're having to talk, which we're not planning to do a show on Sunday, by the way. But
yeah, happy Halloween.
It's happy Halloween. But we're going to have to do something if USC loses. There's going to be some emergency. There's emergencies have kind of gone away, but if you lose to Arizona, there's emergencies.
You snap the 19-game losing streak.
There's going to be some emergencies and stuff. The only thing I'm saying, the path to Arizona winning, if we have to do some kind of emergency show, see, we told you, they actually could run the ball pretty well, and their pass defense is okay. And then USC had those 3 turnovers and gave up a punt return for a touchdown, and that's what happened. Whatever it is, it's something like that. We're trying to give you the scenario if that does happen. Didn't you guys see it coming? We didn't see it coming, but that would be the path that you would have to get there.
I don't see it coming. Your favorite 5 had said Drake London 28, Arizona 10.
I like that.
Could very well be the case.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, that could be it for sure. Shotgun, did you say your official score? Or not score, but you definitely think USC's going to win, correct?
I'm picking USC to win.
All right.
I don't know if they'll cover, but they'll win.
All right. Well, you got to do my column.
Yeah. You guys, I'm trying to save it for tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
See?
Yeah.
You could pre-write it here on the show, Shotgun. I'm just kidding.
I pre-wrote mine last time before Notre Dame, and then Ryan stole my points.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
That was
you
funny.
corrected. Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, that's gonna wrap.
Keely, what about you?
Oh, I have to say something now, don't I? I hate this spread. I think USC will win closer than people think.
Yeah, so you're going to take Arizona plus the points.
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
I believe so.
And for anyone that is a VIP member, make sure you check out the film study we just posted it from the Notre Dame game. I think there's some decent stuff in there to check out and see where USC is this close to doing things right and why this close is causing them to lose games.
Wow.
Well done. Shadi,
Maybe
you
they
do a
get
good
this
job
close
with that
against
every week.
Arizona. I don't know.
Yep.
This close against Arizona should be enough still.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up this week. Like Ryan said, no show on Sunday. Happy Halloween. Be safe. And make sure you celebrate. It's fun. Dress up. We don't get to dress up this year. I'm a little sad about that. That was always fun. Or we did that like 2 years ago. But
Yeah, probably not last year. I don't know.
I don't even know what we did last year. Yeah, true. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. That's Ryan. That's Shotgun. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.